information than him.
All right. Okay. So the audio problem I was just having. Okay. And I need to get rid of the audio problem. There we go. All right. Sorry about that. I was having a serious audio glitch. Yeah, so well, I have audio glitches and things that happen with my podcast all the time. Yeah, well, I could add the other one and go back. So it's better. There's still echo. Let me see if I can't fix this. Give me a second. We're going to get into this whole podcast with Jeremy Corbell and George Knapp. Okay. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now with no echo? No, that's not happening. All right, but then I can't share that. Damn it. It's very interesting. Well, I'm gonna scratch that whole plan, and we're just gonna go with this. And unfortunately, it's gonna have some weird echo, and I'm sorry about that. But as long as you can hear me, that's fine. I hate the audio problems. I want to dig into the information and get into the show. If you go back to the first, this is now in episode 3, and I'll give you a recap so you don't have to sit through and watch this torturous nonsense of, these guys. It's all pre-scripted, all pre-edited video, and I just want to go over some important concepts, because in the first one here, the episode 1, they kind of talk about, George talks about his background, how he got into this. He was just a KLAS reporter, and he started reporting on this John Lear case. And when he started reporting on John Lear, he noticed that he got tons and tons of views, and tons of people started, watching his show, and it really blew up. So that was when, George obviously realized, hey, there's a ton of money in this. And you go back to this 1987 interview with John Lear on the record, where he talks about a secret base, Area 51. He talks about this base out there, the sub-secret part of Area 51, where they have a hangar with 11 discs, and they do alien autopsies and all these alien experiments. And he talks about the MJ-12 and these Bud Hopkins book, where they abduct people and change their genetics. And there's a hybrid breeding program between the aliens and humans, and all this stuff that he was talking about back in '87 with George Knapp. And it got tons of views, tons of people tuning in. And then it started fading out a little bit, and they needed a new story and a way to really, sell this to the larger public, and really, bring this story out. And that's when this whole Bob Lazar character appeared. And it's interesting. I go into the story of how that happened a bit more in my my video on Bob Lazar.
Storage area,
but
and they stayed there with impunity for up to 2 and 3 hours over a period of 3 days.
And nobody heard about it.
Well, there was a few reports, but you really don't. I have a report 150 pages long of the F-106s that were sent out to chase them, and the helicopters, and notifying the Canadian authorities, and the security patrolmen that were sent down to actually see what was going on, and they'd come up on these things, and they'd say, "I'm not going any further."
You think maybe it's a top secret area? If the Air Force actually does have them, maybe they got him here.
I'm certain they do. Up at the test site, there's a report that of the three that they got in.
Now that's a real journalist asking, skeptical questions, trying to get to the bottom of the story, and not leading, your witnesses or anything like that. Yeah, John Lear was an interesting guy. He was doing a ton of really good research into Area 51 and was exposing some of that. And I think they really quickly realized that he was a leak problem. And the best way to plug a leak is not by, threatening them or trying to shut them up or doing any of this. It's to insert your co-optive, your agent, to sort of co-opt the narrative, tell them everything they want to hear, but mix in a whole bunch of disinformation with it. And it seems kind of interesting the way it all comes together. If you look at the history of this, 87, then Bob Lazar comes out 2 years later in 89. If you go back to their whole story of it, Bob Lazar meets John Lear he was working for a real estate appraiser named Gene Huff, who went and did an appraisal on John Lear's house. They gave him appraisal in exchange for all his UFO files and documents, all the Billy Meyer stuff. And the guy holding the tape measure going around the house and being the photo processor for all the photographs for this paper thing was actually a guy named Bob Lazar. And that's how Bob Lazar, was introduced. And he talks about, when he first met Bob Lazar, Bob was skeptical of all this UFO stuff and was just like, oh, this is a bunch of hooey and nonsense. But once Bob saw this hooey and nonsense, getting hundreds of thousands of viewers on KLAS, and noticed all the attention that it was getting, I think he saw the dollar signs and quickly changed his tune on the whole UFO thing. But it's interesting go back to this original interview if you ever have time and want to do the research and listen to John Lear on the record 2 years before Bob Lazar, basically giving you the whole Bob Lazar story 2 years before Bob came out. So it's really interesting to see how a lot of the popular evolution of the UFO literature progresses. Because I go back to the whole UFO thing. You have Bob Lazar's sport model, which looks just like Billy Meyer's, craft of 20 years before that, early 1970s. Billy Meyer starts coming out with this craft, these pictures of these craft that look almost just like it. And then 20 years before that, in the 1950s, you had Otis Carr, the Otis Carr with his UFO that looked just like the same thing, only a 1950s version. It just kind of gets a little more advanced for the time each time. So, with Lazar, right? The education thing is the first red flag for me. When I started looking into the physics, and I was like, oh God, this guy worked on top secret programs and was really involved with top secret physics and stuff. This is of course George Knapp and Jeremy Corbell have made themselves famous essentially by retelling the Bob Lazar story. So it's important to go back and revisit the history of all this and how it fits together. And I'm not going to attempt to sit here and debunk the Bob Lazar story on this show. Wasn't my goal. If you want to get into people who have really, really researched the Bob Lazar story and people that I've shared my research, because it's not something I can cover in a 3 or 4 hour segment. It's something that you have to take months and really do your research on. But if you want,
I'm going to give a quick shout out to
I'm going to play for these 3 guys. Got really deep into ufology, and they're really smart. And I talked to these dudes. They did a stream last night. I just want to give a shout out to Rather Be Squidding, Lou Angeles, and Singularity Mike. And I want to play real quick the shout out that they gave me for you guys to hear some
alien scientist. King Milk Fart can get a shout out, but I can't. Come on, guys. Shout out to you, sir.
No, and that's another thing. Like, I feel bad for. Like, I remember sitting down with Jeremy privately, alien scientist, because Corbell did not want to be in the first big phone home anywhere near Jeremy Reese, because he threatened him, and like his wife hates him. There was a whole bunch of things. And to be fair, Jeremy has been pretty. If you think I'm blunt with what I think is truth, Jeremy is fucking incredibly blunt with what he thinks. And I remember having a conversation with him, like, hey man, like, why are we focusing on the negative, man? Like, why don't you do a show focusing on the shit that's happening that's good? You know, like, why don't you, I mean, like, because he wanted to come on to the Big Phone Home. I wanted him to be there. You know, I didn't really know his history, especially for the first Big Home. I had no clue who most of the time I was talking to. I was just like, oh, wow, you've got 100,000 followers and you want to be part of this event? Great. We need all the help we can get. We need all the mouthpieces we can get to help spread the message. And Jeremy was one of those guys. And that was like a fire I had to put out, because Corbell didn't want to be anywhere near Jeremy Reese. And Jeremy Reese has been calling out Jeremy Corbell and George Knapp on their bullshit for years. And they've been right, especially when it comes to Bob Lazar. They've put out the best information when it comes out to Bob Lazar, whether and what kind of person he is. Like, what kind of human is he outside of this bullshit story that two guys have
not just that, but
built to the last drop, and still to this day tell lies about. Like that FBI raid had nothing to do with Element 115, and they lied in a film, a documentary. I'm doing air quotes right now. You can't see a documentary. Like, give me a fucking break. Yeah, Jeremy Reese been calling that shit out for years. For years.
When you name, again, coming back to this.
Oh, man, that's so funny. So, all right, just to clarify, Lord Ludacris, Corbell's claim was that I threatened him, but I never actually ever, threatened Jeremy Corbell. I just challenged him to a debate, and if he didn't want to do a debate, I challenged the little gnome to a cage match, a karate fight, because I practice karate too, but I'm not like him where I show it off and tattoo my arms and go around, on TV and stuff. But I'd be happy. I challenged him, if he didn't want to debate me. I said, we can go on Joe Rogan and I can, I'll debate this dude intellectually, and I'll challenge him physically as well, because I don't think that he's as tough a guy as he tries to pretend to be either. And he got all offended and pissed off about me challenging him to a cage match on Joe Rogan, essentially, and was saying that I threatened him. And this was funny because I went to Alien Con in 2019, and he was there as well. And he had like this, the security was like watching me. Anytime I left, that they were just watching me in that room. And anytime I left that room, they would be on me. And there was one point George Knapp was in there, and I went up to him and started, showing him all kinds of stuff. I had my whole folder I had on Bob Lazar, and he got like freaked out and walk away. Yeah, I'm talking about Jeremy Corbell. These guys are all cool. Rather, you're cool. Mike, cool. Lou's cool. And thank you guys for giving me a shout out to my Bob Lazar science, research. When I told these guys 2 years ago who these people were, what was going on, and how this all would go down. And I'm just like glad that, people who actually spent the time and done the research people who got close to like people like Lou Elizondo, you know, like Jeremy McGowan. You know, I'm just trying to get Jeremy McGowan on to interview him and his story of, you know, all the people that have gotten close to these top people, and who are all connected to Bigelow Aerospace. So this whole ATIP program was, you know, essentially, you know, started under, you know, Harry Reid's office in Bigelow Aerospace. And there's this whole connection between Harry Reid's office and Bigelow Aerospace, where these guys are convinced that there's deeper UFO file, and they're trying to they created this whole program essentially to try to bring that information out, I think. But it got, I don't know if it got co-opted in the process or if it was that from the beginning. But one of the most revealing pieces of data that, you know, you come across in the whole investigation of this is that the whole thing with TTSA, with Elizondo and Mellon, it started with Tom DeLonge. Tom DeLonge came out running the whole operation. And when it came out that on WikiLeaks leaked a bunch of these Podesta emails on the internet. And in those Podesta emails was these emails from Tom DeLonge emailing, you know, White House staff talking about how he wants to be involved in UFO disclosure. And John Podesta saying, oh, you know, like I might be able to hook you up with some people and get you started on that. And it just basically like blew the whole operation right out of the water. And this was, you know, right after their debut. I think that was right after their first debut. TTSA came out on the scene, and you know, this came out in Rolling Stone, and Tom was just devastated and defeated by it. And he said, you know, I think that's when after he bombed the Joe Rogan interview, he kind of like stepped out of the background. So they needed a new tattooed frontman tough guy to sort of take over the scene for the whole popularity, you know, contests that they try to do with these ops. And it's very interesting that, you know, Tom DeLonge faded out, and then in comes Jeremy Corbell, and suddenly George Knapp, you know, this one of the most credible journalists in ufology in some people's eyes, you know, Jeremy Corbell to be his apprentice. You know, so Jeremy Corbell calls George Knapp his mentor. And yeah, this is really, really interesting how this op is exposing itself and falling apart right out in the open. It's interesting when you have a show called Weaponized. I mean, this is, if you were to take this DOD narrative, and by the way, I want to get into this whole DOD narrative. This is really important. Here, I'm going to share this video real quick because we're gonna switch gears. This is going back to 1997, and this is the U.S. Air Force. This is the opening line from the U.S. Air Force's report on the 1947 Roswell, New Mexico incident that aired on June 24th, 1997. So listen very, very carefully.
I only wish we'd been able to get this number of media here with us when we were trying to tell you about the importance of air power to national security recently. I only wish we'd been able to get this number of media here with us when we were trying to tell you about the importance of air power to national security recently.
So, obviously, the Pentagon's interest is air power, national security. And I think after this, when they realized it was an epic failure, that they even held this press conference to try to deny Roswell more, it just fueled more conspiracy theories. And, you know, Corso came out with this book. I think it was the same year as this, you know, and it's never ended. So I'm curious if, you know, and I have a whole analysis on Corso that I've done too, where painted as possible misinformation or disinformation, and who I think the real corporations and entities are that are involved in this research. Because, you know, Weaponized is claiming to bring out these whistleblowers and researchers, it's interesting that this is these people became the most popular podcasts very quickly, and it's getting tons of views, and it's multi-platformed across all the it's well produced, man. Like me in my spare time trying to do UFO research and share it all, I don't have time to do with the professional platform to really do what these guys do. That would be nice if I did, and I could have tons of content just going over all the old videos and stuff that I've done. And I have so much unreleased stuff that I've never shown either that I could get into. So they bring out guys, they go to Huntsville and interview, Jay Stratton, who's working in Huntsville with this company called Radiance Technologies, which looks just like one of these companies that was created, I guess Travis Taylor joined, the other Skinwalker Ranch scientists. And then this guy's working for him. And then George Knapp's on here and Weaponized telling people on his podcast that, Radiance Technologies is really where all the UFO stuff is going on, and the research is really happening with the government. And this is, the big top secret spot for all your information. And they're the inside source, and they got the inside scoop. And then I got these trolls that are, every time I attack Jeremy Corbell or say anything about him, I get these trolls that come out and attack me on Twitter that, tell me, oh, you're just a construction worker and you're not a real scientist, because I have a real job and I don't do this full time and grift off it to make my money. I actually work and go to work and work hard for my money and, do this as my spare time. I'm not, professionally, paid to do this by any means. I'm not getting, I've done this organically and called out a lot of people and said things that were, inconvenient. That's what real journalists do, is they publish news that people don't want to hear, that people fight against. And I'm sorry that like a lot of them get blacklisted for that in the UFO community. It seems to, eat its own and be an entity of itself, where it's like, if you're either in the believer camp or you're not, and if you're a scientist or a truth seeker or anyone just trying to get answers and who comes across some bullshit and exposes it, they get all mad at you. It's like, no, we're just, this is ufology, and what I do in ufology is I consider ufology to be a giant dumpster full of trash, and I'm trying to find a wedding ring that someone dropped in the dumpster. And by the time I can clear out all the trash and get down to that wedding ring and say, I found it, here it is, some other people will just come in and dump a whole nother load of trash in on top of it. And I'm back to square one. And that's where I feel like I'm at as a scientist trying to get anywhere. And I'm not the only one. You can go right on Twitter right now and read Eric Weinstein in his comments about UFOs and UAPs and his, most recent, views on them after, having been researching this for, I think 2 years now, he got into this. So our intellectuals and scientists who we've asked to, look into this subject, they're becoming, frustrated because they're tired of looking at the garbage. And by the time I pull out that little wedding ring, it's so, I think it's so dirtied up and tarnished that they don't want to really look at that little nugget of truth and information. But, Eric Weinstein is into some of this stuff. He's been interviewed on Jesse Michaels and talked about a lot of the physics and new ideas of this stuff. But I don't think he's got quite all the same ideas, because I've spoken with Eric, and he's saying that every time I look into the subject, they refer me to material scientists. And well, there's a lot in the material science, I think, that can explain UFOs, especially when you get into 5-dimensional quasi-crystals and metamaterials and that kind of stuff. Which has been my response to Michael Shermer, the skeptic, of Skeptic Magazine, and also Mick West, and then these other guys, Stephen Greenstreet. There's a lot of these guys on the debunker side Well, Corbell's saying, "Oh, debunkers beware! You know, we're going to have the ultimate podcast and shut people down with some real
Information
stuff,
than him.
and we have the best information." Yeah, you don't. Okay, and
I get that. So certain things that are classified in a calm, cool, collected way, because he really empathizes with people that have less information than him. And I get that.
so I get that too. I empathize with people who have less information than me. I understand. There's a lot of disinformation and misinformation out there. And I understand that. What I can empathize with is people like Corbell, who just got into UFOs very recently. He hasn't been researching this 20 years like me. He doesn't have a scientific or technical background or any real kind of wits about him, really. And he's got this sort of smug attitude of this air of authority and I'm better than you, which I never want to come across like that, even though I know I'm better than this guy, And I'm sorry that I come across like that when I come out and challenge this fool, this buffoon of a man. But it's the truth. Like, you went to Huntsville and you interviewed Jay Stratton. Okay, I have a source from Huntsville too. Okay, tell you what, I've never released this interview. I'm gonna post it. I'll post it for you real quick here. No, that's not it. I'm going to share it real quick. Hold on. So I'm not going to show this whole interview, but this was a woman scientist from Huntsville, Alabama, named Amy Eskridge. She apparently committed suicide in a field behind her parents' house. Apparently was suffering some mental disorders, but she told us a lot of interesting stuff. I wrote a lot of it off because she talked about like time travel and that her future self came back and that she had discovered anti-gravity in the future and all this weird stuff. And obviously that didn't happen because in the future, in this timeline anyway, maybe in another alternate timeline. But I don't know if I believe in that view of physics either. But yeah, I've done interviews with real sources that are real tied to the intelligence community. I mean, her parents knew Ning Lee and all these other scientists who were doing anti-gravity research. These topics were like dinner table discussions at her family growing up in Huntsville, Alabama. So, yeah, I have sources too, man. I'm not just some construction worker who, just started doing this yesterday, and a maintenance guy at my parents' apartment complex or something that just started realizing, hey, I could probably make more money grifting fake UFO stories if like Patient 17 and Skinwalker Ranch, but yeah. Amy Eskridge, yes, that is this woman's name, and that was one of my sources inside the world of Huntsville, Alabama. And boy, did she tell me some interesting things about Huntsville and the people who work there. And Huntsville, Alabama, you're either a physicist or a spy. If you live there, your dad, like I said, you go to the high school. She went to high school there. She said, your dad's either a physicist or he's a spy. And it's like one or the other. And it's a crazy town. I mean, this is where Redstone Arsenal was. This is where the Nazi Operation Paperclip Central was operated out of, Huntsville, Alabama. It's quite an interesting place. And I learned quite a bit from my conversations with Amy, of which I probably will never publish officially. I've shared them with a number of other journalists who have been investigating, secret space program witnesses and scientists, of which, Amy definitely claims that she was involved with secret space program stuff. And she sometimes, her conspiracy theories about it are just a little bit too wild for me even. So I'll leave that at that. But yeah, I got sources in Huntsville too, man. We've talked to some real people. I mean, look up her dad's work for NASA. Yeah, she dated Mark for a while. Yeah, look up her father's work for NASA. Mark went out there and stayed in Huntsville for a while and got a whole bunch of interesting intel from that trip. But Bob Lazar, you can go to the Bob Lazar timeline. I encourage people, if they want to research the whole Bob Lazar story, you can see how Jeremy Corbell and George Knapp continue to lie about the Lazar story through omission. They tell you only certain things and they tell you certain angles. But I'll tell you something. I'm going to make a prediction right now about weaponized, and I have an inside source on this too. Just so you know how serious we are over here at the Alien Scientist channel when it comes to UFOs and UFO intelligence. I'll make a prediction right now, and Bob Lazar will not come on weaponized. You will not see Bob Lazar on this new podcast. They will do all kinds of other people and interviews and pilots and military guys. And I guarantee you, they probably even stole my idea from me about putting up ads down at the local, your local VA hospitals, you know, because the VA hospitals where all the veterans go for medical care, free medical care for life after you retire, through the VA hospital for military veterans. And so this is a great place to put up, you know, advertise and say, hey, I got a podcast. We're looking for UFO witnesses. And you could just get an endless supply of dudes who will talk about crazy UFO stuff and make up stories or whatever have you. And you don't have to be a real journalist. You don't have to do further investigations. You could just, you know, do what these guys do. And it's oh man. Anyways, yeah, they have had, you know, all right witnesses on so far talking about some stuff, but the whole thing with these radiance technologies being the hub for where all this top secret stuff goes on, I don't know about that, and I don't know about their assertions that this witness of theirs, this guy they say is the top UFO hunter, Jay Stratton, whether he's the real top UFO hunter, because wasn't Elizondo's boss Neil Tipton? You know, wasn't Neil Tipton the guy he complained about in his letter of resignation? And wasn't Neil Tipton the real guy who was in charge of this? Because I'd love to interview Tipton, man. That would be great. You know, it'd be great if we can get a hold of Stratton and get some other people besides, you know, Corbell to interview this guy. We'll find out if he's legit or working for a disinfo program. Because if he's just like these other guys and he won't give interviews to anyone but the circle of the people that don't ask real questions and don't do real journalism or real investigations, then we'll know for a fact that this Jay Stratton fellow is you know, working for, you know, counterintelligence purposes. But regardless of that, I think that Tipton is really going to have some interesting things to say about who Elizondo is, and he can tell us about what Elizondo really did for this program. And you know, because there's a lot of interesting things that happen with the ATIP, you know, the OSAP. I think the OSAP program personally was much more interesting than the ATIP program. The OSAP program is the one that dealt with the technology and those defense intelligence reference documents or DIRD reports. So if you look up DIRD's OSAP, right? Yeah. Well, if you go and look this up on Black Vault, he's got all the documents and the DIRD reports where you can find all the technical reports where it talks about like awesome technologies like metallic glass, metamaterials, I think quasi crystals are mentioned in it, but it talks about spintronics, optical. It's got the 38 papers and that whole thing that was, you know. So there are some interesting leaks that do come out through these guys, but then they focus on all this other stuff and they say like, oh, well, these are the real people. Well, I want to talk about a real Bob Lazar that I found, through my research, and that I want someone I continue to come back to. This was in September of 2021, about 2 years ago. This Air Force contractor was, he did a year in prison for taking classified documents home. This guy was named Isaac Kemp, and Isaac Kemp wrote his PhD thesis on submillimeter wave imaging and wave guiding techniques for non-destructive materials evaluation. And I thought that this is real UFO stuff. This guy's connected to Wright Patterson. He's in a physics lab doing technologies that are classified, and he did a year in jail just for taking papers home from work with him. So this is someone you can actually learn real stuff from. And it turns out that Kemp was working as a subject matter expert for another company called MTSI. And MTSI is a company called Modern Technology Solutions Incorporated. And at MTSI, what they do is they have it's like a Rolodex for UFO, not UFO, but it's a Rolodex for subject matter experts. So scientists who are subject matter experts. So if they need and ones with clearances. So it's when the Air Force or, the DOD or the DIA or DARPA or one of these guys want to look up a scientist, that they look to this company, and they'll go to this company and say, hey, we need a subject matter expert in X, Y, and Z. You got anyone? And these guys will be like, yeah, I got this dude, and this dude. So if you want to find the Bob Lazars and, the real guys working on some real shit, look at companies like this. You can look at Radiance Technologies all you want, but I'm just saying, don't just look there, and don't just, listen to George Knapp and Jay Stratton and Jeremy Corbell, because, like Jeremy Corbell said, he can empathize with people who have less information with himself. I can too, but I can't when they, just ignore you completely and don't. They omit all this information and will block you so that you can't share that information with their audience or their followers. I think that's very telling, and that I have a problem with. Also, guys, there was a recent DARPA Forward conference out in Fort Collins, Colorado at CSU, Colorado State University. That happened just last week, and there's a bunch of awesome video up on from DARPA, from real, smart people working on defense advanced research projects, talking about what DARPA is doing, and, engineered living materials. Okay. This is big. This is where these scientists and whistleblowers talking about, oh, the ET craft are actually grown. They're actually biological. Well, they're talking about that now at the Pentagon. And that's an interesting 10-minute talk you should definitely check out and listen to. Extreme optics and imaging. Okay. Now this is real far out. Definitely, this is stuff. Sometimes you want to save this stuff because it will be up for a week, and then it would, if it's got something in it, a little hint of something that DARPA decides, oh, this is, sensitive now, they'll go back and pull these videos. So this is where you have to go if you want real classified information, man. You just got to look in plain sight in a lot of these places, because they post it out there, but then they pull it back, because they'll dangle it out there and then they pull it back. So that's where something went classified, is when it disappears. So when it sounds interesting, technology wise, and then it gets pulled. So that's generally where I do a lot of my research. Every day I'm looking up certain keywords, classified things, just classified documents release. Anyone that gets arrested with classified documents, because these leaks happen all the time. These people get arrested, and you'll find the story. That's how I found the Isaac Kemp story and broke that story, just doing those daily searches for classified documents, contractor arrested, different things like that, and you'll find this stuff. But yeah, this Radiance Technologies, Travis Taylor, he joins Radiance Technologies. This was in April of last year. And so he's now the principal research scientist at this Radiance Technology. So they got these Radiance Tech. Yeah, interesting. But they're a defense contractor and they're doing some interesting stuff. But I don't think this is the only place you're going to find Bob Lazars and secret government scientists, because there's lots of other places you'll find them, including right out in the open. Right in plain sight, right on DARPA TV. You'll find a whole bunch of people. And sometimes you'll look up one of these guys and start looking up into some of their other published work, and you'll find a whole bunch of a gold mine of interesting stuff. So consider the source, consider the information that you're getting. Again, look at other sources, and when you consider a source like Jeremy Corbell, who's on CNN. How does Jeremy Corbell get on CNN? Like that one, I really would like to know. There were some UAP related questions asked at today's DoD press briefing. Let's listen to those real quick. You know what? I'm going to share the audio on that. There we go.
Thanks, Pat. Do these Chinese surveillance balloons somehow explain the UAP, some of the unidentified aerial phenomena that were reported in that report to Congress? Have you gone back to look, and are some of those UAP incidents perhaps those Chinese surveillance balloons? And also, did you start tracking this balloon when it left China on July 21st? Were you tracking it all the way over the Pacific Ocean, or did you just start tracking it when it got close to Alaska?
Yeah, thanks, Jennifer. So your first question, that's really a question best addressed by the Director of National Intelligence that puts that report together. I will say, broadly speaking, that when it comes to our assessment of objects in air and space, that's going to always be ongoing work, right? So anytime there's something that's unidentified, by default, we will track that information, and when new information can become available that we can apply, certainly we're going to do that. But to answer your direct question, the DNI would be the best folks to address that portion. Ma'am.
Thank you so much, General. Two separate lines of questioning on the balloon for you. First, did you guys assess that this was a fleet after this balloon was spotted, or from what you've determined in previous UAP investigations? And with that, are you planning to declassify any information about those 163 reports of balloon and balloon-like entities so that we could understand better how they compare and don't compare?
Yeah. So on your second question, I'd refer you to the DNI. Clearly, within the realms of operations security and protecting intelligence sources and methods, we are trying our best to provide the public with as much information as we can on this program, recognizing that we don't want to do anything that's going to compromise our sources and methods. In terms of your question.
Yeah, again, it's all about those sources and methods and protecting those sources and methods. Yeah, do the research on Bob if you haven't. I tell you what, I've done the research on Bob, and anyways, yeah, I don't want to get into the Bob Lazar stuff unless we get some people on that actually want to ask questions or debate stuff. I don't know if I want to open it up to chat and everything. We're going 45 minutes. We'll see if we can get some people that we know on, but I'm not going to be falling victim to the trap. One of the things I want to point out is if you go on Twitter and you go on this Jeremy Corbell weaponized, podcast and stuff. Was one of the things I really think is interesting and really drives home, besides the fact that they were on CNN, you know, CNN is just propaganda central. You know, for them to let George Knapp and Jeremy Corbell go on there and talk about UFOs is just, that was all the proof that I needed personally to know that they're a disinfo op and that they are the disinfo op. But the real telltale sign is just how quickly, you know, they're able to platform and blow themselves up and get like these huge audiences. I think, and also the audiences, you just go through and you find all the bots, right? You get all these people coming on with, and especially on Twitter, you get all these new accounts that are going on Jeremy Corbell and say, "Awesome job, man. Yo, like, bro, like you're killing it." And you're like, even when I do something awesome and I have a whole bunch of friends on here, I'll get like very few of those. Those aren't like legit comments. They're not like real, you know, they just feel fake. It looks fake. And, you know, having excellent show. You guys are really putting all the pieces together. It's fascinating. You get all these people like this saying, you're doing this and I get that sometimes, but like, it just seems like, you know, they've gone through and they've deleted all the negative comments and they have a bot farm army that comes on and just leaves all these positive raving reviews and love this show. This is amazing. You know, like, this is so great. The information is such a high caliber and you guys are so informed and articulate. And it's so fake, dude. Like, something's not right. It's not right. It's just not genuine. It's not legit. And I think that, you know, that's a question. Is that, you know, Corbell paying, you know, because I know that you can pay companies in China that will do this for you, that will go on your videos and, you know, have, you know, I could go and pay one of these companies right now and I get 150 more people watching this live stream and all hit like button and jump on here and say like, oh, this is great. You know, like, this is, you know, awesome. I think that, you know, it's obvious that it's not obvious whether he's paying a company to do this and this is just them doing it, or if this is like a legit, you know, intelligence operation where, you know, they're using like a CIA bot farms essentially. Because I know that the CIA has bot farms and, you know, in their intelligence agencies, they know how to socially engineer, and they have Chat GPT, you know. Yeah, you have Chat GPT. Chat GPT like really opens it up and lays it clear for everyone that how easy it is for an intelligence agency or just, you know, a group of programmers with some coding knowledge to sit there and put together a thing that creates accounts and, you know, sits in these chats and does this. So like, you could pay for my bot farm and I'll put you over the top. Yeah, I don't know if they're paying for it or someone else is paying for it. It's another thing that gets me, because, you know, they could be paying for it some, but, you know, because if I was the CIA, I wouldn't go and approach a guy like Corbell and be like, hey, you know, we're gonna work, you know, you're gonna work for us. He's that much of an idiot that he'll do the work himself if he's just, you know, promoted and prompted in the right way. So it would really, like, if I was, you know, really wanted to get Corbell going, I would pay my own bot farm or hire my own hackers to make a bot farm that would go on his videos and just massage his ego and make him think that he's the best and he's so awesome. And then he won't listen to guys like me who says, no, you're wrong. Like, you're not doing the right research. You know, there are people that know more than you and you're getting taken for a ride. Obviously, you know, so I don't know. It's hard to say. So, I'm going to bring some people on. I posted up the link. Oh, dude, you doing some exercises, bro? What's up, Lulu?
Hey.
Yeah, I'm just chilling in VR chat.
Yo, the show's name is Weaponized. And that Air Force conference, they opened it up. They're like, wow, look at all the people that turned out for the press conference on UFOs. If only we could get this many people to show up and be interested in defense and national security, you know? And it just seems like if I was the Pentagon, I wanted to get a bunch of money from, you know, defense. That
I have a theory. I think the microchips in our phone have different time. Like it designates different time. So if you have, you know, like Apples or Androids or just, you know, they all like the core chip oscillates at a different time. So for example, I turned on 4 devices today. I just wanted to like experiment with it to see like, you know, how does YouTube, you know, schedule these things. And there is a significant delay, you know, between how it allocates spots for like your show, for example. So it has to do something with the, you know, what's inside the apparatus that you're using, you know, and the core chip and the oscillation and how it registers the time. So, yeah, just idea. I was trying to experiment with it, but yeah.
Yeah, I would believe that, you know, like if I was a company like that, I would have, it would be easy to hire a bunch of computer programmers to run bot farms to influence social media. I mean, the Israelis were doing this. The FBI is did a big thing about doing this with the, and yeah, this is a big problem. This is a big issue, and AI complicates that issue significantly with what they're able to do with automated.
It's something called SHA-256, and it's a cascade. And so how it like registers that time in different blocks. Well, that SHA-256, like it's like splitting the world in 256 segments, and you know, 7.8 billion people have to fit into that to, you know, create a one unified time. But the truth is, some lag, some of them could be days, some of them could be weeks, you know, just it depends on, you know, the server that they're using to do these conversions. So I'm 100% sure it you know, it's that. And it has to do with the, like the magnetic that, you know, rotation that goes from south to north and it loops around. Yeah, something like that. But yeah. I love that.
Yeah, man. I don't know. This guy. There's something that makes me feel like this isn't the real program. This isn't the Pentagon's top UFO hunter, and that there's a lot. I know that there's a lot of other programs that are UFO related research. It's clear from the IRD reports that there's a ton of money into classified research. You know what I mean? And hey, sorry, Grandmaster, I had to mute your mic again. It was I think it's rubbing on your shirt or something, man. Yeah, it's his mic, dude. Sorry, guys. Hey, thank you, man. That's genuine. I know that it's coming from you because I know you're not a bot. I know that you're actually like a legit dude because I've talked to you, Mr. Patel, and we're right on the money with these metallurgists and the UFO metals and some of the stuff. This is where, if we're going to get disclosure, we have to keep pushing these angles, and we can't get taken for a ride on these distractions back into the same people, the same companies, the same entities that have been misleading us, you know, for decades, you know, 3 decades. They've been keeping that story going, getting people to look at, you know, Papoose Lake out in South Area 51, and there's nothing there. You can look up Gabe Reisman, Area 51 flyover. This dude flew over the whole lake with his plane, man. He filmed it, and there ain't nothing there. And then they think that there's an underground base under the lake bed. The lake bed actually gets wet during the rainy season there, so it floods out. So there couldn't be a base under there. It would all be flooded out, and the mountainside is a little molehill, dude. It's not even big enough to house a real a secret base or anything. It's real revealing, and it was even more revealing when George Knapp covered the story and did like, oh, this guy did a flyover showing Papoose Lake. And then when people were like, oh, where's the base? And how come it doesn't show any base there and everything? They quietly took it down. So it just kind of shows that they could say that later. They can be like, oh yeah, we reported on that story and we covered that. But the reality is that they took it down. But it's just, I won't get into those guys anymore. Well, it's kind of the point of the whole
one of Gabriel
to talk about them, but yeah, a lot of weird things George Knapp and them have done, especially with this Jerry Friedman story, because I covered that story a while back and talked about it on a couple streams, and then I had these trolls going on there and calling me a liar, saying I misrepresented this dude's story, and nothing could be further from the truth than
take note
that Jeremy Corbell misrepresents the whole story. This guy hiked out onto Papoose Lake, and he hiked all the way up Nye Canyon right into the secret area known that's in Papoose Lake. So if there's a top secret base here that's more top secret than Area 51, this dude never would have been able to get that close to it. And that's the bottom line argument that I, made in that video and that I talked about. And I showed, to try to retrace his steps as well as I could, with the maps and everything based on his testimonies. And, they took this whole story about, oh, you left out the part about the lights and he thought that a door opened up underneath, it's like, this stuff doesn't make any sense when you do the real research on it. And one of the things was the lights were actually these blinking collars that they put on bighorn sheep out there. They actually have this. Anthony, dude, your mic is. Someone's mic's making weird noises, so I have to mute you all out. The Jerry Friedman story it doesn't support Bob Lazar's story, but then somehow Jeremy Corbell tried to switch it all up and make it look like it actually supported his story, dude, when it didn't. The Jerry Friedman story debunks the idea that there's a top secret base on Papoose Lake. It doesn't support that at all. And the lights he was seeing were the collars on these bighorn sheep that blink, man. It's do the research. Like it's not like a smoking gun for anything. Believe me, if I found a smoking gun for Bob Lazar's story, dude, I would have showed it a long time ago. But like all the research I do into Bob, I just find, that there's all these problems with his story. The timelines, don't add up. The whole issue with the real thing is with that whole, I showed it in my Bob Lazar. If you go to my channel and you watch Bob Lazar Inconsistencies, this video right here,
story is challenged.
The real Bob Lazar story. I clip up a whole bunch of the John Lear interview.
Story is challenged by consensus.
The pieces of this clip from Jeremy Corbell's new documentary, where we just show all the fraud and misrepresentation in it. So people go check that out if you really want to see the Bob Lazar. I really should edit that down into like a documentary style and then break it all down, but I just kind of clip it all up to show people, the whole alleged Wednesday night flights where they saw this, these test flights, and how could Bob have known about the test flights? Well, he was with John Lear, and John Lear knew about a lot of this stuff, and they were filming the Janet flights because the thing doesn't move until someone hits the camera, and I have all that. You can see them hitting the camera. I slow it down and show it. So a lot of this story, you know, the Lazar story, pieces of it have been systematically removed. We had a whole playlist of all the contradictions and times Bob, you know, changed his story or lied, in a whole playlist of Bob Lazar videos that I had on my channel. And when that movie came out on, you know, when Jeremy Corbell came out with his movie, somehow he got like a backdoor deal with Bob Lazar where their media company got rights to all the old Bob Lazar video footage, like all the old interviews and all the old stuff. So what he started doing is he went around and took that playlist and had all those videos removed and wiped from the internet. And now you search for that stuff, you can't find any of the old Bob Lazar stuff. All you find is the new stuff and all this, you know, the rehashed, censored, and sanitized version of the story where they can, you know, they can peddle this nonsense off and get people looking down these rabbit holes that, you know, it took me 20 years to really sort that case out and get to where I am now with it. And a lot of that information's been destroyed or wiped. You know, I took down Bob Lazar Debunk because it was just costing me money and wasn't giving me any return. And, you know, it's people would rather pay for the, you know, you to tell them a lie than for you to tell them the truth. So I just, no sense in keeping that information up or the website. So it's gotten taken down, but all that research has still been done. I still, you know, it's still out there. But again, these guys are on this kick. They're getting on CNN. They're getting 50,000 views for their videos. And, you know, it took me a long time and a lot of hard work just to get 110,000 subscribers. And then, you know, for a guy like Jeremy to come out of nowhere and get that, and it's just, it doesn't seem organic. A lot of things that they do don't seem organic. And the fact that they're on CNN just really did it over the top for me. I can't really, CNN is like one of the worst. I mean, I won't even get into all the stuff that's happened with CNN because it's just inappropriate. If anyone has children watching, some of the things that their senior executives have been involved in, don't even want to talk about it. It's just, it's disturbing to say the least. I really wish that, you know, these were UFOs and not, you know, Chinese air reflectors and drones and spy, you know, Chinese spy stuff. But the reality is, the Pentagon's admitted to this. China's 20 years ahead of us in the electronics game. And I think that, you know, the theory that these things are aliens is kind of ridiculous just because of what we know about metamaterials and invisibility cloaks. And if you had an advanced technology with an advanced species, they have warp drives, so they're capable of getting here. So they obviously have metamaterials. It's much easier technology to build than a warp drive. So if they can get here, then they're invisible. And I don't think that what we're seeing are aliens unless they want to be seen and they're showing themselves to you. And this could also contribute to why people say, oh, how come you get these people see these UFOs, but there's no clear picture of one ever? Well, they're using optical distortion technologies, which make that very difficult if they were legitimate, you know, alien craft or whatever. You can't expect to ever get a clear picture of them. Even some of the top secret craft they have used some of these technologies to avoid photography or surveillance, espionage, and what have you. So there is a lot of interesting advances going on with this field, and a lot of really advanced drones, hypersonics, super cavitation, you know, Mach 10 plus craft, and other types of technologies that are currently being developed in the US and China. So a lot of this stuff is top secret, and it's very much related to defense. And the Pentagon is very serious about defending itself from real threats. But I think publicly, in order to, to keep the hush on what's really going on and to get funding for it from the public without really a lot of questions being asked, it just makes more sense to push this alien, UFO thing. And it's working. It's working quite well for them. The Defense Department, they got, their weaponized podcasts, spewing pro Pentagon friendly propaganda for them. So but does that exclude the idea that there could be aliens or extraterrestrials? No, there definitely could. And I definitely don't rule that out. And I don't rule any of that hope out that we might be able to, stumble upon some of this technology or create it. But it's, from what I've seen, we're years off, and China is too. Even though they're 20 years advanced, man, I don't think China is close enough to create, these quasi-crystal metamaterials. I mean, a lot of the literature in quasi-crystals and metamaterials, I'd say like 3 out of 4 papers that I find these days are from Chinese scientists and Chinese laboratories, Chinese universities. So they're the ones really pushing a lot of this technology forward, if you read through the literature on all this stuff. So do I think that they're that far ahead? No. I think there's something else out there that's maybe 50 to 100 years, maybe even more ahead of us. But I don't think we're thousands of years behind, or that it's going to take, thousands of, we're a couple tech revolutions behind this, but they're coming very soon. The singularity is almost here. AI is already jumped the game exponentially with the ability of artificial intelligence to create new material science and dream up new materials. So we're really, I don't think we're thousands of years behind, maybe a couple hundred, but even then, I think at an accelerated pace with the right insights and the right disclosures that we could quickly catch up. That's why I just say, like, well, for defense purposes, the DoD needs to come out and declassify anything that they have related to the UFO file, especially UFO metals, which could house, foreign technology. All that needs to be like, I don't know, there needs to be a Manhattan Project scale operation if that's the case, so that this needs to be going down. And I think that there may be something like that going on. If there is alien technology, then there should be something like that going on. And so I continue to investigate and look for whistleblowers related to those efforts. And if anyone is a scientist who has free energy or anti-gravity technology, please disclose it here.
Do you think those reflectors are supposed to like send a signal to a place that's not gridded by the main grid of the world, and like to a particular angle with a receptor, but that's not wired through the main grid, and that's why they're using that, to reflect?
Well, these are like decoys to just to mess up air. These are kind of like decoy balloons, and they're deployed for different purposes. So I don't know. There's different ones. This is different than the spy balloons, which would be transmitting data, probably through over the horizon radar or stratospheric radar signals. I don't know all the details on that spy balloon and how it was transmitting the data, or what kind of data it was collecting and transmitting. I don't think that kind of information's been released or will be declassified for a while. But yeah, there are a variety of these Chinese reflectors, and they have different applications. Some are just to confuse radar devices, and some are actually, DRFM technology, or electronic countermeasures, where they're actually disrupting, radar. Yeah. So it is an ECCM. So it's a counter radar technology.
Thank you.
You want to mess up and screw up their ability to see things. Then you put up these types of reflectors, which just create too much noise. It creates a wall of scrambled noise, you know, so that like they can't see really beyond what this wall of balloons is scrambling all the radar signals in the new, you know, so they can't really get a signal of anything beyond the balloons, you know. Oh, hey, you got to fix your mic. You're in Alvin the Chipmunk land again. Maybe you got to reboot your computer, Anthony. Man, I don't know what Anthony tries to join, dude, and every once in a while he sounds like Alvin the Chipmunk, and I don't get it, dude. It's always when we're live too, and then as soon as we end the live, it's like everything works fine. Dude, of course Phil Schneider knew things, man. His dad was friends with Gray Barker. He was part of a family of some of the biggest UFO hoaxers and insiders back in the day, dude. His dad was at the wedding where the photographs were taken for that whole Valiant Thor thing. It was from a wedding, and I have all the wedding photographs that they said these are just people at the wedding. One of them is freaking Phil Schneider's dad, dude. So Phil Schneider was, you know, grown up on all those weird conspiracies and the Gray Barker stuff, and he's also like a schizophrenic. Is kind of like had mental problems. He cut his own fingers off in a mental hospital and said that, you know, he got shot off by alien grays. So I don't know. You can believe what you want, dude, but I've done some of the research on Phil Schneider, and you know, I don't know what I believe with that case anymore, man. It's kind of like the Ed Fouché thing, you know. My views on that whole case totally changed when I found that you know, the TR-3A black mana footage, you know, from all the experiments of the drones that they were building that looked like these black flying triangles back in the 70s, man. And when I found that out, I was just like, man, I just feel like all the TR-3B flying triangle stuff was a big cover story for Northrop Grumman's, you know, research that they were doing into these drones and stuff. It just seems like, why would this leak at a UFO conference of all places? You know, that's where Ed Fouché decided to leak this whole, you know, top secret information about this U.S. Air Force flying platform, this big black flying triangle. It just, I don't know, man. I go back and forth on the Ed Fouché story all the time, because how the heck did he know about quasi-crystals and metamaterials, you know, back in 1998? It's just kind of weird, man. So, yeah, that whole thing was put on by a whole bunch of hoaxers related to Gray Barker. I went down to the Gray Barker archive a couple of years back. You can watch my video on that. Me and Michael Schratt went down to the Gray Barker archive, and we interviewed watch the interview that I did there with the head of the museum there. He's like an expert on all this old literature and stuff, and he's found things that a lot of UFO researchers don't even know about. And I interviewed him and blew a lot of that stuff, man. We talk about the Phil Schneider thing. We talk about the Valiant Thor thing. Talk about a couple different cases that we were, including like some stuff on the Philadelphia experiment and Maurice Jessup, and that we've solved through you know, who Carl Allen really was, Carlos Allende, and the whole story of that. So go check out that old video I did on the Gray Barker archive if you're interested in that. Dive into some of that old stuff, old UFO stuff. I don't know, man. I think there's some cases that aren't, you know, explainable, you know, like some are just really weird. Like one of them is that whole Japan Airlines case. The Japan Airlines case is one of the most interesting, from, you know, because that one's just really hard to explain. We got blimps, but man, nothing that big, you know, the size that they said that this thing was. That kind of blows my mind. But yeah, I don't know, man. I'd like to hear what your thoughts are in the comments on these dudes. what you guys think. So leave some thoughts in the comments, and please share this video, smash the like button, and any other information you have on George Knapp or Jeremy Corbell or anything more in this. I think it's all said in that first interview when George Knapp, talks about how he got into UFOs and how he was just doing regular stories at KLS, and then when he started covering John Lear and the UFO stuff, his viewers and ratings just went off the charts. I think that tells exactly where these guys are at and how they got into this and why. But again, maybe I'm reading more into this than there is, but it just doesn't make sense. A lot of it doesn't make sense. And I have some background information too of people I've been talking to behind the scenes. Can't wait to publish these emails. But I will state for a fact that Bob Lazar will not be on Weaponized. I know that he's pissed off at Jeremy Corbell. He's mad at him over a couple things, and he's not going to do any more interviews or Bob Lazar is not going to work with Jeremy Corbell or do interviews anymore in the future. And Corbell's not going to talk about that. He's not going to admit to that. That's the truth, the reality, and I've heard it behind the scenes. And I will place bets with anyone who wants to bet against me that we will not see Bob Lazar again or hear from him again through Jeremy Corbell's channel. Tell people that, and I can almost promise that with the sources and the information that I have on this. So, yeah. Good luck. Have a good night, and yeah, I hope I've opened people's eyes, because I've been doing this quite a while, and I've been wrong about certain things, and I'm always willing to admit where I'm wrong and when I get things wrong. But I've been right about a lot of stuff, man. So, and that's only because I've done the time and the research into this. So, but I would bet, yeah, I guarantee, man. I guarantee. So, hey, join the after party. We'll see you backstage. Thanks for watching, guys. Have a great night, and keep searching. The truth's out there. It's not going to be on CNN. It's not going to be on maybe Tucker Carlson. Nah, I don't think it's going to be on Fox News either, man. The truth, the revolution and the disclosure will not be broadcast. Will not be televised. It will be shadow banned and censored, and you know where to find it. Thank you all for watching. Have a good night.